Hello, this is Nest Tilson here. This is a video to show how to set up walls in Polyboard project mode. Polyboard has got three ways of working. The first way is simply the cabinet mode, which allows you to build furniture and cabinets. Second way is the project mode, which allows you to build walls and floors and then insert cabinets either that you're making on the fly into the project or that you load from a library into your project. And the third way, of course, is the catalog mode, where you don't do any drawing at all and you just take cabinets from your library and then give them the parameters you need. In this video we're going to look at the project mode and how to set up a wall with precise dimensions so that you can insert your cabinets into, say, a kitchen fittings or cupboards or stuff like this, which is made to measure furniture that has to fit into a specific space. Polyboard has got a whole set of tools for drawing walls and floors, but I'm going to show you a very easy way to set up any project to its exact dimensions that you want, which requires very little effort and will go very fast. So let's go into it. Here we've just set up a simple wall configuration, which comes from a drawing which we have over here in AutoCAD. This could be an architect's drawing if you're working from architectural plans. It could be an on-site measurements that you've taken yourself, and whatever, it's not very important. The important thing is that we have the actual dimensions of each wall section where we're going to install our cabinets. So for this example we're going to just to set up this particular wall configuration here, this part of the wall here, which we have here in Polyboard I've set up before. But let's set it up from scratch, so let's get rid of the actual project as it is and just create a completely new project so that I show you how to set it up. The first thing to do is to open a project mode, and the easiest way to open a project mode is, of course, just click on this button up here, which is New Project. Let's put the language into English so that we're actually using the same language I'm speaking in the user interface. So we go into Project, New Project, and Polyboard will open up the Project Edition edit window. In the project edit window we have a surface where we're going to actually see our drawings, and we have on the left hand side the list of cabinets in this project with their different views. There's no cabinets for the moment, and on the right hand side, as always, we have our properties window, which shows us the different properties of the element that we're actually working on. So how do we go about setting up these walls? Well, the first and the easiest thing to do is firstly to add a new model, surprisingly. So to add a new model, I'm going to click into the models list, put the mouse into the models list, click right on the mouse and add a new model. Adding a new model in the project mode brings up, in fact, the cabinet edit window for a new cabinet. I don't care what the size of this cabinet is, and I don't really care what it is either. I'm just going to click OK, so it appears as a new model in my models list. This new model, I'm going to grab it and slide a model onto the project edit surface. Now this model, I'm going to use it as a sort of what should we call it? A template. Let's say a template. Because the interesting thing about Polyboard is our models, our cabinets, are parametric. Our walls are not parametric in all aspects. We cannot give, for instance, the length of a wall directly. Polyboard has some certain, you can draw walls with coordinates, so if you're at ease with coordinates you can maybe try and use the coordinate system to actually put in your walls, but this is going to be an easier way to do it for people who don't like using high mathematical functions like coordinates and things like this, which is my case. I don't really like, if I can find an easier way and get around putting in X, Y, Z's, I prefer. So the way to do that is to take a model which is parametric and give it the actual size of the wall that you want to build. So if I go over here into Polyboard, Progicad, or AutoCAD if you're using AutoCAD, and say that, for instance, the first thing I want to do is to set up the dimensions of this particular section of the wall. Now this particular section of the wall is 273 centimeters by 30, which is its thickness. So I'm going to give this first model in Polyboard, the model here, I'm going to give it a width of 2730 millimeters, 273 centimeters, and the depth of the thickness of my wall, 300. Now I know that this particular bit of furniture is exactly this particular size. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another bit of furniture that represents this bulge in the wall, this column, and this column is 70 by 59. That's great. So I'm going to take the model, I'm going to slide another model onto the project edit window. I'm going to give the width 700 millimeters, and then when I click out of the 700 millimeters, Polyboard tells me, well, you've changed the model. This cabinet, which is called model, you've changed it. Do you want to make this change globally on all the models in the project, or just create a new one? I'm going to create a new one. I click create a new one. I click OK. So Polyboard has now given this new model the new name, Model 1, which is 70 centimeters long, wide. The depth, I don't want it 300, I want it 590, or 59 centimeters, of course. And now this particular cabinet, this Model 1, has got the same dimensions as my column. I'm going to click it onto the other one, and you can see that Polyboard has got an elastic line. As you approach the corners of the cabinets, they will snap onto one another very neatly, and this is a very neat function which is going to help me build my walls. The next wall I have, if I move across here, I have a wall of, I want to draw this particular wall here up to here, which is 283 by also 300. So if I go back into my Polyboard model, this particular wall here, I want it 283. I want to create a new model with it, and I want to clip it here. So we can see now that we have set up this bit of wall, and now what we want to do is we want to set up this wall here. I'll click it, I'll just show you highlight the extra area now we want to set up. This wall here, which is 210 centimeters long. So I'm going to use the same method. I'll have to adjust the method a bit. I'm going to drag in a model, give it the width of 210 centimeters or 2100 millimeters. The depth will stay the same because it's the same thickness of wall. And when I click out, it will say save in the model, no. Create a new model, yes. The difficulty with this particular bit of wall, of course, is that it's actually inclined at 45 degrees. Well, how do I make this wall inclined to 45 degrees? Well, I'm going to go onto the Model 3, which is the name of this new model cabinet, click right, and in the menu choose Rotate Cabinet. I'm going to choose to rotate this cabinet at 45 degrees. But if I put in 45 degrees, you'll see that Polyboard will rotate the cabinet in an anti-clockwise direction, which is not exactly what I want. What I want is it to be in a clockwise direction. So I'll re-click on it, Rotate Cabinet, and instead of putting 45, I'll put minus 45 degrees. And it will rotate it in the opposite direction, which is quite neat. I can now take it and clip it onto the other wall. Now we have another wall here. If we go back into our AutoCAD drawing, we have a wall which is here. and our length of the wall is 146, and our width of the wall is always 300. Let's draw that into Polyboard now. I'll do the same thing, take my model in. Now this model is already 300 millimeters in depth, which is the right thickness for my wall. So I could just turn it at 90 degrees and change the length and clip it on. But there is actually a simpler way, which is simply to inverse the parameters. I can now put the width as 300 and the depth, create a new model as always, and the depth will now become the length, which is 146 centimeters or 1460 millimeters. And I don't even have to turn it. I can just invert the length and the width and the depth. So I have now also now I have just missing, I have a bit of warp missing here. If we go over into our AutoCAD drawing, the idea is now that we want to draw this particular wall. So that will be this particular wall here, and our length will be 208. So going over to Polyboard, we'll put in our model, our basic model here. The width being the same thing, 300, and the depth, create a new model of course, and the depth being here 208 or 2080 millimeters. And this particular wall will now clip here. Now we have, in Polyboard, we have set up all a series of cabinets which are parametric and which have given us the shape up to a millimeter, well, the precise 100% precise shape of the AutoCAD drawing, or the sizes that we have taken on site. Okay, now let's use these cabinets to set up our walls. So what we're going to do is we're going to just fill the screen. Let's take a full screen view of our Polyboard project. We're going to go into our project mode window, click right and add a new wall. And we're going into the surface edit mode. In the project mode we have the surface edit mode where we can add surfaces, horizontal and vertical surfaces. And now let's set up our wall. How do we set up the wall? Well, we're already in, we've decided that we entered into the surface edit mode, drawing a wall. We're ready to draw the wall, and let's give the parameters of this wall. We have a thickness here, so let's take a thickness of 300, which is the thickness of our wall. The position is actually on outer. That means that we're going to be able to, when we're drawing a wall like this from left to right, the wall is going to be actually on the outside of the line. If I change it to the inside of the line, you can see that it actually goes on the inside of the line. That is drawing from left to right, that with the wall on the right, and whereas the outside of the line is drawing from left to right, the wall is on the left. We can also use a center option, but this is not very useful. I would, you just use left and right or outer and inner. That's the way to go. Let's go get rid of the sections we've drawn. And now we have the elevation of the wall, which is how we want the wall from the floor. We want it on the floor, so we leave it at 0, 0. And we also have the parameters of the height of the wall. Afterwards we have the color, 3D parameters. In 3D there's the color, the transparency and the brightness. Let's put, and then we have the texture. Right, color, we're going to choose a color for this wall. Let's choose something like a light green, for instance, or maybe even a dark green. And let's take away, I'm going to rub off the actual file which gives the texture of the wall, and we're just going to give it a color for the time being. Now the wall parameters are set up. Let's draw our wall. We can just click onto the corners of our cabinet. Polyboard will automatically find the corners and clip them, and we can just draw around the outside of the wall, going around our cabinets. And when I click OK and I look into 3D, we can see now that our walls have been drawn, and we can see the walls have been drawn, and we have the cabinets completely enclosed in the wall thickness. That's great. The wall's okay, but now what we do is get rid of the cabinets. We don't want the cabinets anymore. They were just useful for positioning the wall. So why do we get rid of the cabinets? Well, this is why we do it. You click in the models list, you click on the model, for instance, the model 5. And when you click on model 5, the model 5 will be highlighted in the project. All the instances of model 5 in the project will be highlighted. If you press the delete button, model 5 will disappear. All the instances of model 5 in the project will disappear. But model 5 remains in the list, and we can add it again, but we don't really want it because this model 5 was only specific to this bit of wall. So I'd quite like to delete it from the list. So what I do is I just highlight it in the list, and I press again delete, and if there's no instances in the project, model 5 will disappear from the list. I'll go through that same operation, delete the model in the project, delete the model in the list for all the other instances of my models, except for the original model, model 1. The original model, model 1, I'm going to leave it in my project for future use, and I'll just delete it from the project, but not from the list. And here we have the walls, and we only have the walls without the cabinets, at exactly the same shape as the AutoCAD project. Our next point here is that what would be quite good is to add a flooring to it. To add a floor, we're just going to click right, add new floor, and we're going to give the parameters of our floor. For instance, let's say our floor is only 20 millimeters thick. It's only a decorative surface, the floor. It has no real use in this particular project. It's just going to be for decorative purposes. The position of the floor, let's put it below the 0 position so it doesn't come up into the walls. Elevation, leave it at 0. Let's put the color a default color, and let's give it some texture this time. So what texture we're going to give it? Let's give a file name. Let's look for some texture on the floor. What we could do, for instance, let's go into my polyboard library. My polyboard library being, I've got some texture libraries here, and let's take some, go into our texture libraries, and let's take some floor decking. So some floorboards, wooden floorboards. I'll put some wooden floorboards, and let's apply this wooden floorboard. Open the applications window, and I'm going to apply it as a mosaic. That I'm going to repeat the design across the floor, and I'm going to give it a certain dimension. I'm not quite sure what dimension I'm going to give it here because it depends on the size of my image, but that'll be okay. Now let's start drawing our floor. Our floor surface, it's a good idea to make sure that you're aligned to the grid. That will enable us to clip on the points here, and it'd be easier to align our points on the grid. Just going across like this, and once you've finished all the different points that you want on the floor, if you click on this icon here, close the line, it will create automatically a surface. We can see that for this last line here, I haven't actually drawn it perfectly perpendicular to the other. To do that, to make it perpendicular, you can just click once and drag the point across to make it perpendicular like this. If I click OK, and now I look into my project mode, and I have here now set up a surface, a decorative surface of flooring, and the project is starting to look quite neat to be able to start putting in my bits of furniture. What's missing, I would say, in this particular project, I don't like these walls. Let's go back to our walls. I'm going to clip on our walls, and I'm going to change here in the properties window the color, and I'm going to give it a lighter color of green, for instance. And let's just change my 3D view. Let's just change my 3D parameters. I'm going to change the background color to white. Okay. And so that we have here now our wall. Okay, now we have our wall set up. We can use Polyboard's dimensioning functions here to set up, to give us the precise dimensions of the wall. If we go into the measuring tool and click on horizontal measurements, I can now clip here and clip here, and when I click right on the dimension that is showed and I put permanent dimension, Polyboard will actually put the dimension in place so that when I exit my measuring tool, I will have the dimensions of my project. That's just a little extra to show that we can also dimension our projects. Okay, in another video I'm going to show you how to create the openings in these walls and how to insert doors and windows. So I hope that's been of interest to you, and I hope to see you very soon in another video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.